Hi, Dr. Anupam. This is Jeremy here, and I'll be recording for you and presenting to you the features that I was not able to do so earlier due to the screen monitor resolution issue in the tutorial. So, right now, I'll just go ahead and log into this MySQL server first. As you can see, I cannot log in into this user without a password. So I will go ahead and click my password and log in. So this is to answer your question earlier regarding the security for the database. So just to show you, actually the database has a few login users, and the FYP user, the user that I'm using for the final year project database, is one of them. So I hope this addresses your question earlier with regard to the security in the database. So right now I'll show you, these are some of the tables in my FYP database, and they are all used for the system. So right now I would run the system and I would show you how I actually register a user. So first I would register a patient. And for the email address, I actually use this email, which I will show you right now. This is the email that I use for all the patients for this system. This is for convenience for the demonstration purposes, as sometimes I have to log in to show you guys that the email account actually receives like the electronic bill as I showed you earlier, or even the monitoring data in PDF form. So I'll go ahead and create this this patient. So once I'm done, I'll click on submit, and a new patient will be registered in the system. We can double check this by taking a look here. So this is one example, and next I will just show you how doctors and nurses are being created. So same thing. Note that these are all random names that I'm using for this example. So note that there's this extra verification code. For this, it simply means that for hospital staff, doctors and nurses, they can only register themselves once they have this so-called verification code that the hospital gives them. This is to ensure that that no random person using the system can create a doctor or nurse account as and when they wish. So it's sort of a security feature. And how and the syntax for this verification code, as mentioned in the report, is basically for doctors it starts off with doctor in capital letters, and for nurse it starts off with nurse in capital letters, and then followed by a sequence of numbers. And this will be randomly generated by the hospital that they are working with. So if I were to leave this empty, I wouldn't be able to proceed. And similarly, if I were to key in arbitrary values, I wouldn't be able to proceed either. So this this is an edit check that I've added into the system. So this seems like a correct um, syntax for the verification code. So this could possibly be one of the verification codes that this doctor has been given. So we'll do that, and the doctor can be registered in the system. And we'll double check. There you go. This is the doctor that has just been added. And right now, finally, for the nurse. So add an extra digit. So for nurses, same thing. The nurse will also key in her username, her password, and the same verification is similar for the nurses. You have to enter the appropriate nurse verification code. So for nurses, it will be nurse followed by a random set of numbers generated by the hospital. And the registration for the nurse is successful right now, so we'll just double check, and there you go, the nurse is being created. So this is it for the registration, and these checks are actually done by the hospital, done by the SQL server. So if I were to try to create a patient another time, I wouldn't be able to. Let's just try to create this guy again. Let's just give him asthma. Unsuccessful, because I wouldn't be able to create the same patient a second time. And actually there will be an SQL exception thrown, the violation of a duplicate key in this table patient. So this is actually sort of a check, and when we execute this, see, nothing new comes in. It's still the old one because they rejected this instance of the creation. So this is for registration. Right now, I will show you the patient self-warding feature, which I wasn't able to show you fully earlier on due to the screen resolution issue. So right now, this patient has not yet consulted with a doctor, so I would go ahead and log him in. He can log in, he can access the system. It's just that there will not be any consultation record, as well as he will not be able to access the patient self-ward form, which makes sense. He hasn't had a single consultation with any doctor. So I will log in as a doctor right now, and I would consult that patient. So this is the patient that was added earlier, and right now I will give him a description. So I would just use insomnia as an example. So right now this patient um, will be warded for demonstrative purposes, and note that once you select yes, this extra pop-up box will come up, and it would prompt the doctor to choose the type of ward input method for this patient. So in this instance, the patient would wish to self-ward himself, and I would select patient, submit. And these two fields basically, they are for the instance where the patient has a scan or a certain electronic, a digital, a digital type of scan or a picture that was taken for his consultation. These can be added in the record as well. And what this browse file does is it basically allows, in this instance, for example, if it was a doctor, his workstation, to access it and retrieve the necessary images for that particular patient. So right now I would just go ahead and show you an example of this. So I'll just use this as an example. This is the path, the URL, and I will click submit. So this consultation record will be added. And if you were to search for that patient, you would be able to retrieve his consultation record. So, and view his scan as well. So this was a scan that was uploaded earlier, attached to this consultation, and you'll be able to see that. And under diagnosis summary right now, this is updated real time as mentioned earlier this afternoon. So right now, just take note that insomnia is 43%. So this would be updated real time when more patients are being added to the database and more diagnosis for each consultation are being done. So right now, the patient has been consulted with the doctor and he's ready to be warded. So I will just show you, I will log in with a nurse right now. Let me try logging in with the nurse that I created earlier, just to show you that she can log in. So this was the nurse that I created earlier, and right now she would try to ward the patient that I just consulted. So this is the patient's IC number, the same one, and I would now ward this patient. So in any of the wards, I would just ward this patient. So right now, example, I want to ward the patient in class E. So I cannot ward the patient because this is because the patient has selected a patient self-warding. So the patient can only ward himself or herself. The nurse cannot do that for him, as mentioned earlier in the presentation. So right now I would log in as the patient. And right now I have a record, a consultation record. So I can search for it and I will be able to view my scan. And right now you see, as compared to earlier in the patient self-ward form, I wasn't able to ward myself. So right now I can ward myself. So example, I wish to ward myself in this ward. So this basically shows you all the wards that right now are in the in this class, for example, in class E. So these are all the wards, and the numbers, as mentioned in the report, they correspond to the number of patients currently in the ward. So as you can see, all of the class E wards, there are no patients as of yet. So I will go ahead and ward myself in this ward. And right now, after I've warded myself, when I go back to the patient self-ward form, I wouldn't be able to ward myself again or access any of the functions, because this makes sense. I'm currently in the ward and I wouldn't be able to ward myself. So right now, this is the patient self-warding for you. So right now, I would go ahead and show you an example of um, another patient. Okay, I would use, for example, this patient, Mr. Andrew Ong. So let's find his account, Andrew Ong. That should be his IC number. Okay, so and his password. His password is stored in the user account table. So Aong, password will be this. So right now, similarly this patient has no previous consultation record. So I would now let this patient be consulted. So I would just log in as another doctor right now, this example. The doctor that I created earlier. So it will be this doctor with this password. So there you go. And now we're logging in as this doctor. So right now we will look for the patient that we selected earlier, which is Mr. Andrew Ong, and we will give him the same diagnosis, insomnia. Give him his medication. And right now in patient warded, we would select yes, same thing. However, we would right now select the nurse warding method as opposed to the earlier example where we selected the patient method. This is to show you the two different types of warding. So I'll submit that, and for convenience purposes, since these two are optional, these two fields are optional, we just leave them blank. So I would submit this, and the consultation record has been now added to the database. And similarly, we can search for that patient, Mr. Andrew Ong, and there are no scans, however, because we did not select a scan. And one more thing right now, take note of this graph, the diagnosis summary. Note that earlier on insomnia was 43%. Right now insomnia is 50% because this new patient has just been consulted and has been diagnosed with the same sickness of insomnia. So this is to show that this graph is updated in real time, and the data are taken directly from the database and calculated to be plotted here. So right now, that patient has just been consulted with the doctor and he's ready to be warded. However, he has selected the nurse warding, so it would only be correct if he would not be able to self-ward himself. So let's check that and see if it's true. So right now this patient, Mr. Andrew Ong, he can access his own consultation records. There's only one because this is the first consultation he has. There are no scans, which is correct. And he's not able to ward himself in any of the wards. This is correct again because he has opted for the nurse warding. So he cannot select any of these ward classes. So right now we would log in to the nurse and see if she can ward him. Let's So right now, the nurse can actually try to ward the patient. Let's look for that patient's NRIC, which is this. Same one. And we would ward the patient, for example, in class E, which earlier on supposedly had one patient currently warded in it. So we would submit that, and as you can see right now, in all the different wards for this ward class, ward I1 has one patient in it, which is correct. It's been updated in real time because earlier on we just warded one patient into this same ward. So let's just ward him here right now for this example. And now this patient has been warded. And just to double check, if I were to try to ward this patient again, I wouldn't be able to ward the patient in any of the wards. So this also makes sense because the patient has just been warded, and you wouldn't be able to ward a patient twice while the patient is still in the ward. So, yep, this is just a quick demonstration of the features that I missed out earlier in the presentation this afternoon due to the screen resolution issue. Thank you so much for your time, Professor Adupa.